Shan lived in Kenya, and she was about 12 years old when this whole story happened. She lived with her mother, and everything was going rather well until the day her mother received a job offer far from home. It was a 6-month contract with good pay, so she couldn't refuse. The only problem was that Shania couldn't go with. The job required her mother to travel constantly, and she was still too young to live alone. One of her mother's friends helped find a babysitter. The girl's name was Lucy, a young woman just out of high school who had recently started university nearby. Her mother suggested that Lucy move in with them and bring her belongings. She even stayed one more night to make sure Shania felt comfortable with her. They chatted for a while, and Shania still remembers Lucy telling her mother, "I have classmates who are interested in witchcraft, but I would never touch that stuff." Her mother found her nice and thought her daughter would be in good hands. The next day before leaving, Shania's mother handed her a Bible and said, "Keep it with you. It will protect you." Shania smiled and gave it back. "No, you should keep it. It will protect you." But secretly, her mother slipped it into Shania's suitcase before leaving. Looking back, Shania feels her mother somehow knew something bad was going to happen, and that since she didn't keep the Bible herself, misfortune fell on her. The first weeks went by without much trouble. Almost. Lucy slept in her room, and several times, Shania woke up in the middle of the night hearing her pray. But they didn't sound like normal prayers, more like incantations. She repeated things such as, "Deliver me from evil and protect me from the demoness traps." One night, Lucy deliberately woke Shania up and asked her to pray with her. It was almost 11 p.m., which felt strange, but Shania agreed. They knelt down. Lucy began praying normally, but then grabbed one of Shania's hands, then the other. Before she realized it, Lucy started squeezing harder and harder. Shania's hands hurt, and Lucy's voice suddenly changed, deeper, stronger, darker. Shania understood something was wrong and screamed. Lucy stopped the prayer, started out air, then suddenly lifted her, threw her onto the bed, pinned her arms, and began smashing her head against the wooden frame again and again while shouting her prayers louder and louder. Shania heard nothing but Lucy's terrifying voice, her own cries, and the sound of the door being forced open. The neighbors, alarmed by the noise, rushed in and turned on the light. At that very moment, Lucy froze and became calm, as if nothing had happened. A man pulled her away while the others carried Shania to the living room. She was in shock, traumatized. They called her mother, who immediately asked a neighbor to take Shania to sleep at their house that night. Meanwhile, the neighbors confronted Lucy, furious, demanding explanations. She yelled at them, then ran outside. What she did next terrified everyone. She lay on the ground and began crawling like a snake, then stood up and disappeared into the night. The next morning, Shania's grandfather came to pick her up, and she went to live with her grandparents for the 6 remaining months. Lucy never returned. Shania begged her mother not to press charges. A friend later went to collect Lucy's belongings from the house. Even today, Shania still shivers when she remembers those nights. One thing is certain, she and her mother learned their lesson. Beware of strangers. Appearances can be deceiving. This story was followed by another chilling experience from Chris in Zagreb. One evening, he and his friend Steve decided to go for a walk. After spending some time with a group of friends, they got bored and left. Both were fascinated by the paranormal, so Steve suggested going to a nearby cemetery. Chris hesitated but eventually agreed. The cemetery was huge, strangely empty of guards, even though there were usually patrols. As they entered, Chris felt a chill run through his body, despite the summer heat. The cemetery was well lit, with 3 visible paths. Naturally, they chose to walk deeper inside. They chatted about random things, mostly girls, when suddenly Steve said, "I heard if you whistle here, someone answers." Chris felt uneasy yet curious. He whistled first. Nothing. Then Steve whistled. Still silence. They laughed it off and continued. But 5 minutes later, a faint whistle echoed from the distance. They froze, staring at each other. Deciding to investigate, they walked toward the sound but found nothing. Just as Chris was about to speak, another whistle came. This time from above, in a large oak tree a few meters away. They looked up and saw her, a shadowy woman, dressed all in black, sitting among the branches, staring down at them. Their hearts pounded. Suddenly, Chris felt dizzy. When they looked up again, she was gone. Then they heard it, a meowing sound. But it wasn't a cat. It was a woman imitating a cat. Terror seized them, and they ran blindly, panicking. Chris glanced back and froze in horror. The woman was lying flat on the concrete, pale, thin, dressed in black, smiling unnaturally wide, still making that horrible, inhuman meowing sound. They finally escaped the cemetery. Chris was trembling, nauseous, in shock. He told Steve he was going home and never returned to that cemetery again.